Welcome! Give it up for the one, the only, the Mad Doctor Adega Outlaw! Light the fires for Stone Cold Loki! Gentlemen, welcome to 7 Kinds of Mischief! Just a little hot tonight.
Is that your kind of puppy, Lady Mist?
Just a little hot tonight. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to 7 Kinds of Mischief with the Mad Doctor Adega Outlaw. How are you doing, my friend?
I am not a swearing man, but if I was, and I turned my camera on, I would be sticking my middle fingers up in the air, spinning in circles, and pulling off a razor fist, saying, "Screw you, I was right." It has nothing to do with what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, Loki's kind of pissed off tonight, so bear with me. You will find out what's going on tomorrow night, or tomorrow morning, believe me, because Loki is kind of ticked. Loki is kind of hot. Loki has been investing in some shit, and Loki feels like he has been burned, and I am pissed. I am pissed. You know what?
Yeah, but you're in Valhalla, so we got your back regardless.
When you back some people and they end up acting like absolute jerk off, jackass, stupid, idiotic dumbasses, you're just like, God help me. 2 days worth of messages of, you know what? Don't put up with the drama. Don't listen to the shit. Don't blah, 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 blah. You know, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, brother. And then they act like absolute dipshits. I'm like, you know what? I'm so done. You ain't getting my money. You ain't getting my money no more. I feel like a dumbass for already spending it. I swear.
You're good. Just let it go for tomorrow. Save that heat. You get some ratings off of it. Monetize the evil that other people have done to you. No, I shouldn't laugh. I know you're pissed, and I'm really sorry it went to that. But people are people.
You know what I want to do? I wish it wasn't. I wish it wasn't after the end of the year already, because I got this, and I'm almost like, I want to just play this tomorrow because it would be so fitting. Hold on. There we go. Mr. Hanky's Christmas. Howdy, right? That's I just want to send that out in the universe. This is a wonderful Christmas present that I got. I haven't even opened it yet. We got Mr. Hanky Christmas Poo, Merry Effing Christmas, Oh Holy Butthole, Dead, Carol of the Bells, The Lonely Jew on Christmas. I Saw Three Ships. It happened in Sun Valley. Oh, and a whole nother set of FU. This is funny, and I'm pissed. So, yeah, that's what I feel like right now. I think I already kind of got some barrels for it earlier. Not him, but he got to hear about it. So,
yeah.
Lady Mist, I can feed him to my dragon. Send him to the void, Loki. God help me, I want to. I'd be like, you know what? Y'all go to the void. Y'all go to the void and get eaten by a dragon and then come back and tell me how your precious little bullshit on Twitter's going. Ugh.
The dragon Vahanoi only takes orders from Lady Mist. He will be there for her.
We need to, you know what, Lady Mist? We need to make you a dragon. We made Adega a dragon. Adega's got his own dragon, Adegon. We need to make you a dragon. Let me see
boy
what I've
dragon.
got in my storehouse of evil, fire-breathing demon dragons. And I'll see what I can do. We can make a Lady Mist tea or something. God help me. Oh shit! Good evening, everybody. You know what? I needed
Good
this. I
evening.
needed this. I really did. I needed this with you because
Ah,
God help.
well, I'm always here for you. You know that. Any time of day or night, I do that for family. But no, I'm really excited, not because of the sad things that happened to you, even though I was right with that too, but yeah.
I love it. I knew that was coming. I told you so, Loki. God, it's like when I get on the phone with Mim. I told you, Loki.
Well, actually, today I've just been going over all the things that we've discussed over the years when we've done this channel. When I was giving you all the conspiracy theories, and I'd say 90% of them have come out to be proven correct with proof. And oh, I feel good about it. You know, the other things are I hypothesize, like the plane wreck and, or, you know, those the other things, some of the UFO stuff. I just throw it out there. But, you know, when it comes to the political stuff or the deep, dark secrets, I was right. And also another thing that was right, even though I'm not technically have any degree in it, although I have done a lot of study, is the science, whether it be healthcare or cosmetology. Cosmicology. I don't know that. I can't say the right name.
Cosmetology?
The study of space and the way things work in the universe. There have been people who give me a hard time saying, oh, no, there's dark matter and there's dark energy. And people give me a hard time saying, oh, no, you're wrong. There are black holes out there because Stephen Hawking told us so.
Oh, remember the micro singularity has as much pull and power as a like giant. Yeah, no.
Cosmology. Cosmology. Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. Yes, but I have been right. And the universe is older than the Big Bang, and the Big Bang never happened, and all of this was done because they had a couple of scientists on the hook at an island where little children would frolic with involuntary persuasions. And that wheelchair was on the island several times for blackmail purposes.
Oh no.
I was right, and I'm going to prove it tonight too. Unfortunately, part of the proof is actually kind of scary, which when Loki and I tell you for preparedness stuff, this is just another reason why you really should take heed to those warnings. I sent him a few pictures, and periodically you guys have heard me talk about, and it doesn't come up often, but I have mentioned it once or twice, the shifting of the pole of the Earth. That's that first image that I sent you. Magnetic north, you could see when they first measured it for this particular diagram, 1990, and then you notice when it hits 1980 to 2000, it accelerated. And if you were to see the 2004, it has jumped again. The polar shift is accelerating. This is a 12,000 year approximately. It depends on various different atmospheric conditions, whether or not the age or dating is correct. But this event has happened before. It's in the geological and archaeological records where it was an extinction event for several species as well as nearly humans. Our time is coming once again. Now, the other day I was talking with Loki about this, not necessarily the pole shift, but about something that is called the Chandler wobble. And all of you remember from school, well, if you don't remember, I'm going to remind you. When the Earth rotates on its axis every 400 and some odd days, it shifts from pointing to Perseus to Orion, not Orion, I got them wrong. Either way, the Earth's axis will tilt about 20 feet one way or the other. They call it the wobble. Sometimes it goes a little quicker, sometimes a little less, but it's always been there for as long as they've been recording it, since 1891, I think it was, and by his last name was Chandler. That's why they called it wobble. And they've been monitoring this over and over. And I'm going to read you from NASA itself. This is it's Jet Propulsion's laboratory of NASA. This is how brilliant these guys are. In an article from 2000, a mystery of Earth's wobble solved. It's the ocean. This is science. Okay. I'm going to go down here about the middle of the article, see if I find the right place. Writing in August 1st issue of Geological Research Letters, Richard Gross, a JPL geophysicist, reports that the principal cause of the Chandler wobble is fluctuating pressure on the bottom of the ocean caused by temperature and salinity changes and wind-driven changes in the circulation of the ocean. He determined this by applying numerical methods, and it goes into the science, and it talks about all kinds of different mathematical formulas, the science. Well, guess what? It was in 2015, just 14 years later, where they noticed something. And for me, it really makes me nervous. And other people kind of nervous as well. The wobble stopped. Here's a summary of an article that came out recently. They have been watching this over the past 7 years, trying to figure, the beat of the wobble goes about, they call it a beat that hits it every 6 years, that it keeps the wobble going. And this is the summary of the article. Although polar motion data have exhibited a 6-year beat over the century, it has been absent since 2015, indicating that the CW or Chandler wobble was not excited. Meaning all that stuff that JPL said about the oceans and the water and the salination and the wind and everything was a bunch of bunk. Not necessarily trust the science. Remember all the healthcare stuff that we went through and I told you not to trust it? Dang it, I'm right. Sorry, I'm going to pat my own back. We examined this back to the article. We examined if the available estimates of atmospheric, oceanic, and land water excitation could reproduce the anomaly. It turned out that atmospheric CW excitations became persistently smaller than before even the estimates of the ocean and land water contributions weren't consistent enough, suggesting further room to improve their accuracies, meaning everything that they had discovered before was bunk. I throw climate change in there because they use similar models. Similar type of, I shouldn't say similar models, but the scientific method they use is similar. They leave out a whole bunch of stuff and they come to wrong conclusions. Back to the article. Taking advantage of the recent CW anomaly, we show that the quarterly factor of the CW is not as high as the previously preferred 100, indicating that the required CW excitation power is higher than expected before. So there's no wobble, and yet the excitation is higher than it has been even back when there was a massive jump back in 1920. The Earth is not shifting its axis, and the pole is accelerating towards a point somewhere in India and the Pacific Ocean. When it finally settles down, estimates are, and there's various different sources that I have for this. What that means, and this is why I want you to take heed. You can show some of the other pictures if you want. Yeah, that's the, if you look at that axial tilt off of normal, that at the smallest point towards either pole will shift 20 feet. You can't show it on this graph, but that's basically what it does. And they can measure that. And one more. The thing about both of these are, without the normal function of the electromagnetic field, which is very weak right now and getting weaker because of the polar shift, and with the change for whatever reason that is called that caused this Chandler wobble to quit, we are becoming more and more exposed to solar winds, solar plasma. It's why the Northern Lights have been doing some funny things and been seen as far south as, I think in the southern part of Michigan, upper Ohio, those type of areas on that same latitude around the world. They've been able to notice them periodically. It's faint, but it is noticeable. Be prepared. Make sure you have things that will help you subsist, because yes, that's the Earth's protective field, and it's shifting. It will reestablish, but in between the time that it switches, which we have no idea how soon, but we know it's rapidly approaching, and probably in our lifetimes, and some estimates say within the next 5 to 10 years. But when that goes, your phones go, your computers go, your cars go. Anything that requires electric impulses that isn't protected will be gone. And you'll be left primitive. So prepare. I mean it. And if it doesn't happen, I'd be grateful to be wrong, along with a lot of other people who study this, who I've learned from. But one thing I do want to notice, and this is Loki's affected by it. A lot of people are affected by it. You guys have heard of and those of you who work in hospitals, and I know Lady Mist has seen this. When the full moon is out, bad things happen to people, and the weirdos end up in the emergency rooms, and even some normal people start to act strange. Mood shifts, heart attacks, autistic children tend to behave differently, or various other disabilities. But when the solar flares, there's a recent study that came out, I didn't bring it with me tonight, that came out that shows under excitation of the solar winds, excessive, especially with the high degree of sunspots, where it's solar maximum right now, which means we got a lot of those. One good thing comes of it. There are a select few, when it hits them and their memories become better and more intelligent. But the most vast majority of it is people's hearts go. They become much weak. You see more and more incidences of heart attack, and do not take that as an excuse for the medical procedures that have been introduced nearly by force, and in some cases by force around the world, because that is a real thing too. But this is something that we have no control over. It's the same effect where it's causing the magnetic variations, the different shifts, is happening throughout the solar system. It is not anything that we've caused. It's happening on every planet. So just know that we have some wild times. Get some sunscreen. Make sure you have some trees around you. Plenty of food. At least 6 months worth if you can accumulate it. And hope I'm wrong. But dang it, I've been right. And you know what? I just proved I was right to the JPL. Oh, so yeah, that's why I'm laughing, but I'm also sad for some of the events that have been going around in culture. So hang on to your hats, folks. This is going to be a wild ride.
This will invert the polarity of batteries as well. So anything that runs off an electrical charge, anything that was a positive charge will now be a negative charge. Everything that was a negative charge will now be a positive charge. It will invert positive and negative when it comes to electrical charges. Everything will have to
sometimes the vast majority that would just eliminate charge, period.
Yeah.
Most stored batteries, the charge will be negated because the metals will break down to an extent to where they can't they can't be affected by the acidity. So it will do that to some. Others, it will just eliminate completely. Power grids will go down. Your phones will cease to work. all that type of stuff. And you can, like Loki was saying here, you can take your batteries out and put them opposite to what it tells you to do, and luck be with you, you might be able to get it to run. So it's a roll of the dice. You still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay.
I didn't know if you were done yet or not. I was.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. Either way, know that tomorrow when you're here for Mornings of Mischief, that Loki has some effect of various different external sources that are causing the fires of Valhalla to be lit extra bright, and one of them happens to be the sun.
He's not kidding either. God help me. But we're gonna get into that tomorrow. Tonight, I have a story for you. A story of dread and danger, betrayal and murder.
What's it me this time?
Called The Rose of Kundris. As I write this testimony, I understand that in all likelihood, I ought to be hanged for it. And not for nothing. I'm as guilty as sin in this matter. I won't attempt to defend myself or persuade anyone I was innocent, because no one would believe it, and because I wasn't. How I loved her, and what agonies I feared her, and feared for her. How contemptible she was. That miserable creature who even now people call the Countess. She who believes herself the Rose of Kandris. But she was my mistress, and deep in my bones remains my mistress still. The end of her days and mine, whatever other name she has stolen for herself, and these guilty days of my own will surely end soon. I am not certain to live after what comes next. If I am to defend myself, I will say only that I was a girl, and that my mistress was not just as beautiful as everyone said, but more so. Once upon a time, that monstrous countess was the loveliest creature anyone ever laid eyes upon. But to me, she was just as willful and ignorant and miserable a child who ever grew up on the fence. Now, you may say that I am a coward, but no cowards grew up in the marshes, and it was a hard life even before all that happened. If you were read this and are not familiar with the Condorus marshes and the lands here, I must first explain them, because they also explain the Countess. The lands she inherited were vast and poor. Her family were the only nobles and had no neighbors of the same status as themselves. Only their valens and coffers, which left them the surviving lords of a blighted landscape. There were once many castles in this land, but those had fallen to ruin, absorbed by the trees and the earth itself. Though many of their dark roots were left underground, the crofters got very little good out of that sticky, muddy, icy soil. Most people made charcoal. We sold it onward in great carts, and I hear that it got sent to Ivgorod and as far as Lane, though we were paid but poor coin for it. There was oil coming out of the fissures in the ground, what they call swamp oil. And some poor creatures would soak it up in woolly blankets and send it on to the monastery to make medicines with it. Nobody was rich in the marsh. But there was a pride that we could live in our own fashion where the Nesh of the South feared to go, and men and women could make a bit of money off of them too, leading travelers to safety through the bogs and dangers. And if you will believe me, we were terribly proud of the noble family and of the girl there too. How little she needed our pride when she had so much of her own. But we were proud of her as you would be proud of a captured tiger, as you would be proud of a scar. Their keep was falling into despair even then. We called it the big house as a fen joke. It must have been of stout stone, but the moat had turned to sludge, and the bailey all around it could keep a cat out. Family were obliged to live in the northmost tower, which had survived best out of the rest of the keep. It was whispered that there was fabulous wealth hidden in the coffers underneath the big house. Trinkets, jewels aplenty with coins hidden in the rafters, but none of this showed in the upkeep of the lands or the house. We all took it for a fairy story. It was inarguable that the family was strong, noble blood, some of the nicest in Honduras, or had been a long time ago. They found it hard to get wives and husbands in the swamp or anywhere else. Certainly, they had been reavers of people, if not of gold and gems. When I was a child, my grandpa told me that they used to practice bride theft and groom theft, carrying off poor young men and women forcibly on horseback. I could believe it of the family. One wouldn't put anything past them. Only they were all so peculiar. Find it easier to believe that they married themselves and their kin and cousins just to keep the precious blood among themselves. There was a great family crest hanging over their fireplace in terribly old-fashioned writing. I could hardly make it out. But the mistress liked to read it to me. By the blood of my heart, with the ghastly preserved head of a stag. Some of the skin had come off, and much of the skull was showing. The mistress once condensed to explain to me the jest, but all I could see was that the family cared very little for the heart, or for the heart either, and only thought about the blood. Oh, and she was the worst of them. At the tender age of just 16, she was the very worst. I came to her when I was but 2 years her elder, but I seemed both a century older and yet a swaddling babe. She was old in her depravity then, and young in her ignorance. I was very pretty for what I was, and for what I cared, for beauty in the swamp was considered a snare and a foxlight. I was cured of preening as a child by my grandpa, saying, "The brightly colored petals are the poison." I think he was thinking of my mother, his son's wife. She had been some very distant cousin of the family itself, had served as some degraded manner of lady in waiting to my mistress's mother, and been suckled at the same wet nurse. She had education, which was why I could write and figure. But she fell in love with my father, who was just a blacksmith. She did not darken the doors of the keep, not a day after that, but lived in the swamps and died in the swamps. A few years before I went to serve the mistress, and my father died after, as he had no interest in living. Even in life, he cared more for my mother than for the forge, or for me, or for anyone. I was an industrious little body, and I kept the house and oiled the tools as my parents mooned over each other. I had more of my grandfather than my mother in me. My grandfather loved me but hated her. That's my own history, and of no consequence except that I was pretty, not pallid like the other swamp girls, but with roses in my cheeks. Always strong as a little horse, and that I was not just crofter stock, but noble blood ran through my veins. Otherwise, the mistress never would have suffered me. There was nobody in that big house to look after her. Her mother had died in the birthing of her. Her father was obsessed with book learning of the most religious kind. half a hermit already, and surrounded with cheese-faced priests and monks, and even let them squat inside the house. I think they were always hoping that they would see some of that fabled treasure for themselves. They waited long enough. They lived inside the old chapel and gave a service once a year that all us swamp folk dutifully attended. On the false belief that an unwanted meal for free had some virtue in it that the same meal for money wouldn't. Otherwise, there were more grandmas and cousins of 6 different sorts for her. But loners, they were all to the body and odd too, and a fearful to look at. She wanted none of them. They got a wet nurse for her, but packed her off again pretty quick once the babe was weaned. Men said later she was born with a full set of teeth and ripped at the nurse's breast when first it was given her. That's a silly falsehood. I knew the woman myself, and a weak, slack-wristed body she was, unfit to give a dog suck, in my opinion, let alone my mistress. After the wet nurse, they ran through 2 women a year trying to find someone, anyone, to care for the girl, for she tired of them all and made their lives unbearable, so that they would not and could not stay. No tutor could teach her. No lady could make her pluck a tune on a viol of interest her in acting chasteling. Maybe Adega can help me with that one. She could ride a horse, and that was all. And so the babe grew into a girl who grew into a woman, beastly, untaught, as unbroken and maddened as a rabid dog, but as lovely to look on as a new morning. That was how she was when I met her. As I said, she was 16, and I was nearly 20. She took a fancy to my looks one day when she was out and about among the crofters, on a horse she hadn't grown tired of yet. I'd gone closer to the big house than usual on some errand, and she had seen me. Didn't know me from a blade of grass, of course. But that was always her way and her choice. When my grandfather came to me saying that I was wanted at the big house, I laughed in his face. I'm not interested in playing nanny goat to that young hellion, I said, and I'm not suited to it. For all that everyone else they've gotten in or to do in that house, it's always gotten worse. I wouldn't say yea to his pleas, nor to my neighbors. They all begged that I not bring the wrath of the big house down upon them. A man came down every day, cozying or begging or threatening, until at last she came down herself, horse and all. One day I looked up to see her standing on my threshold. She took my breath away, half with the flaming cheek of the thing, half with admiring her. She had skin like the petals of a flower, and just as delicately tinted. Too pale for beauty by village standards, most of the time, but right then she had rosy enough. She had been riding hard and was blazing with anger. Her long hair was coming free from pins she had stuck indolently upon it. She had nobody to care for her hair and was too proud and lazy to fend for herself. Hair so lightly and gently fair that it was almost snow gold, white nearly. And nature had played that charming trick it sometimes plays on blondes by giving her dark eyes. Brilliant, velvety, brown eyes. To set off that hair and that skin, she was holding the whip of her horse, and she cried out to me, "How dare you not come when I want you? You will come." I say I won't, so it's your will against mine, I told her, keeping my temper. I'm bigger than you by a head, stronger in the arms, and I could certainly throw you back through that door if I had a mind to do it. What now, my lady? How she gasped. Yet I had made her think, and she could see I wasn't to be cowed either. She had a ferocious, petty temper, but she was no fool. She fondled her whip with a sort of red spark in those pretty brown eyes, as though she wanted badly to use it on me, and looked at me with a kind of terrible hunger, as though I was a meal. She always was like that with anything she thought worth of looking at. She could look at a sunset with tears of fury standing in her eyes that she couldn't own it. They'll pay you, she said shortly. The terms aren't hard. You must be my companion and dress me and fetch my bath and do things for me. You carry yourself nicely. You hold your head far better than the other common people. Get your things and come now. No, don't bother with your things. I won't have piggish peasant furs and fustian around me. Peasant things make me sick. This did not make me love her anymore. I don't want for money, I said. We have enough, which is more than many can say. And if we didn't, I'd go elsewhere, for I'm not afraid of work. Why should I go with you? Because of your beauty? You won't be beautiful in the grave, my lady. I was goading her, and I thought she would strike me, but she smiled. I never could bring her to believe that her beauty might fade. You don't look much older than I am, she said, but you talk like an old woman. It amuses me. I've decided you'll come home with me. Before I could say a word to this extraordinary speech, she strode up to me and seized one of my hands, and I let her. When she saw that it was work chat and red from lye and laundry, she pushed my hand roughly away from herself, and she changed color. The roses in her cheeks went dead, and she looked like a corpse. She was honestly frightening. You're ruining all your beauty, she cried. They've made a peasant of you. Your hands are ugly. She seemed so panicked that I thought she would faint right there. But this is what touched me. Not her silly speech fine about ugly hands or peasantry, but the strangeness of her. She sat down on a stool there and then in my little cottage as though she had been taken ill. I sat before her and said, Don't fret so. There's nothing to fret about. Until she breathed hard in and out, and eventually some of that blush tint came back into her cheeks. She stared at me, through me, and said, They say you have the blood. She meant I was a connection to the family, of course. But she always put things in that strange way, even then. Yet you don't look it. Your hair is too dark, though it curls nicely. Your eyes are the wrong color. Blue eyes are weak eyes, though that dark blue isn't as bad as some. And your nose is too small. Yet you're beautiful. It's because of the blood, of course. Nobody base-born can ever be that beautiful. No girl alive fancies aspirations made on her nose, nor her home people either. But I felt impatient with her, not angry, for she wasn't being what I would call sensible. I said, and yet there are those living up at the big house who are ugly as sin, for all they have is this so-called blood. How do you explain that, my lady? I can't, she said simply. I need you to explain it to me. And so I was caught like a bird in a snare. I did not give a fig for being wanted, but needed was another matter. My vanity was never flattered by references to my hair curling, but it was easily touched by the idea that I had something of interest to say. I said warningly, at the end of the spring, I'll leave if I don't suit. And all she said was, You'll stay forever. Forever as it was, I nearly didn't stay those first few weeks in that great dreary tower, which was less snug than the rudest mud hut of the poorest crofter. My mistress had a great stone room with lofty beams, and I slept in a bed close to the fire in the same room. The servants would never have lit a fire for me if I slept alone. They'd as soon not have it lit one for her, only they all went in living terror of her. I saw her slap the boy who came to stoke the fire, all because she didn't like the look of him, and box the ears of the cook's girl with the breakfast, calling her slovenly. So I brought her breakfast, spare the ears of the cook's girl, and fix something of her dress when the fire was being seen to. How she saw those things and how she laughed. We quarreled. I told her she was spoiled and cruel and a great many things besides, but she simply drank it up like wine. At the end of the second night, I really harmed her by saying she wasn't to wear some terrifying ornament or another. She could dress in awful taste, a dreadful thirst for rich colors. The first time I told her so, she turned white, then liver color, then she made to strike me. But I grasped that delicate hand, then the other. When she struggled, I told her to hold, and that she would bruise her own wrist, and that I meant them to be black and blue if she persisted. Her face was purple with fury and hurt pride. I understand now that I did not understand then how much I had hurt her by ever suggesting she could be anything less than beautiful or ladylike or tasteful. She had always thought she intuitively knew everything about being noble. Like a bird building a nest or a beast bringing down prey, she kept saying, I'll kill you. I'll kill you. I won't have you near me. And grew all the more wild when I laughed at her. Then I'll leave tomorrow, and you won't be any prettier and bright orange than I am. You envy me. You're spiteful. You great clumsy peasant girl. I'll kill you. Oh, how I'll make you suffer. She worked herself up into such hysterics that I slapped her. I slapped her a deal lighter than she'd slapped the hearth boy, but she dropped as though I'd slashed her throat. I bundled her into a chair and bathed the reddening cheek with cold water. I undid the dreadful orange stomacher that did her no favors, nor would it have done favors to any fair haired beauty, and gave her rose color instead, and smoothed her locks. She stared dully at herself in the mirror as I worked, mumbling frightful threats until I said, There, as lovely as the goddess born. You've got eyes, see for yourself. She stared at the vision of her face in the mirror and then started to laugh. A high, strange, unearthly laugh. Impulsively, she took my hand and said, You strange creature, I don't understand you. I knew you wouldn't be like the others. And she laughed again, that curious little laugh, and kept looking at herself with her big dark eyes pressed into my hand to her soft cheek. Must I pack my things now? I said. Not on your life, she said. You served me, and only me. Ah, for that was how she mastered me. I would bluster and act an old woman and nag and scold, for I think she rather enjoyed it. Even liked me to prouse about her behavior and call her beastly. And she turned that flower like face to me in wonderment. Nobody had ever cared to criticize her before. She listened to my criticisms as though I were some exotic bird she was keeping, trilling for her entertainment. I thought at one time she was educating her. I was educating her, but I knew better. I know better now. She liked me to braid her hair, so help me. I was as invested now in her beauty as she was, and she could tell. I loved neatness and beauty and harmony, and it was under my hands that she became elegant and looked cared for and less wild. She knew that if I said something didn't become her, I meant it. If I wanted her to lie down and stop raging because it would ruin her complexion, why then I meant that too. I even got her to stop slapping the hearth boy because I had started taking proper care of her nails and didn't want my work to be for naught. But the rod was never truly in my hand. If only I had not been so blind to see it. Every time she softened, every time she caught my hand up and looked at me with her great velvety eyes, a little mocking, even solemnity, and said, "Oh, Nan, my quibbling nanny goat, know your mistress." Oh, I was mastered then. Just a woman's maid, not a tongue in her hand for reprisal. That was how I knew she was coaxing me. Nan, sweet Nan, dear Nan, not the mocking nanny or nanny goat, not my own real birth name, for she never used it. And I called her very properly mistress, though she knew the difference between me saying it for propriety and meaning it. And there were many when she meant that she should be mistress for me, like I was a priest at her altar. But I did not think I cared. I was the only one in that great damp wreck of a place who could make her mind me. I loathed the others, and I was told more than once by an uncle of hers that I would be out on my ass if it wasn't for her that had me stay there. When I told my mistress that, her eyes went black. He had a terrible accident soon after that, for his saddle strap was slit and came off. He broke his neck in the fall. My mistress was so unmoved and uninterested, I hardly dared think she had any part of it. As for her, whose name I never say when I was very moved, I called her pet names like Daisy or Lily, wildflowers, common weeds, for she loathed those things. I thought it would teach her that beauty was not just found in the seeds and hothouses. The most she ever did was laugh a little sometimes at Daisy. She knew I could teach her nothing. I would have walked days in the swamp with bare feet, not bothering to pluck the leeches from my skin to gather her a blade of grass that she wanted. To hear my mistress say, "Oh, darling Nan," it was always like this with those who believe they are strong, but aren't. It was always like that between us, maid and mistress. After 2 years, my mistress had learned that I knew which colors were most fit for her and how best to style her hair for an effect, and perhaps how to keep her temper when there were others around. I had to let her temper out only on those whom I could deal with for her. For 2 years, she was more beautiful than ever and more terribly aware of that blood running through her veins. The crofters said she was the loveliest creature to ever walk the earth, and even those travelers who came to the big house from the marshes and from beyond the monastery said they had never seen a woman more beautiful, whose features were more perfect, with eyes more sparkling and alluring than hers. Her family were furious with her. For sometimes young men and older men who should have known better came to see her. She flirted with them, spoke slightly to them, and in the end ignored them. And how she and I laughed alone in her tower room when they walked off into the marsh with the look of men likely to die. I should have been more sympathetic, but they were such fools. Sometimes she turned down men of real noble blood. Arguably better blood than her ran in those veins, and certainly with a weight of coin in their coffers that many find better blood. She shook her head to all of them. Baseborn, she would call one man, with the lands and properties that stretched the Sweetwater. Bird-faced, another, with a family lineage that went back 800 years. She said to me decidedly, if their blood was truly good, then they would be beautiful. They would attract me. They don't, so I can't. At one point, I thought her aunts and uncles and the priests would all join together and beat her into submission. But I stood by her. stood like a guard dog before her door and savaged all comers. I thought she would take nobody, and I warned her she might come to regret it, like a field mouse taking nothing into its hoard in hope that the finest corn only to starve in the winter. She would toss her long, smooth by my hand and my brush and laugh with a sound like a rippling stream. I confess I thought nobody handsome enough for her, though I prayed that a king might come, as it seemed she would hardly take anyone else. Next week, we will do chapter 2. That is the end of chapter 1. This is a long story, so that might take 2-3 times. I know we're on page 42. We got a lot there. We got a lot left. Shit, chapter 2 is like 10 pages all on its own. 59. 59? Yeah, it's 59. So we're about.
Just bring a bookmark with you. Mark it when you get tired.
We're on chapter 2. So I've got a bookmark. I've actually got a really cool bacon bookmark that Eris got me last time she was at Barnes and Noble. She found your book. She got a copy of your book.
At Barnes and Noble, it was there?
I think it was at Barnes and Noble. I have to ask her. I can't remember which one was at, but I know she got.
The bigger question is, was the bacon bookmark scratch and sniff?
That's a good question. It's in like a protective cover. I'll have to check.
Oh no, that's cool that my book was there. I didn't know they put them on the shelves.
What's up, Snowdub? Good to see you, brother. Good to see everybody. Tuck and roll, Snow.
Absolutely.
Good to see you guys. Don't make sure. Friday night show is back on for tomorrow. As long as nothing stupid happens. God help me. As long as nothing crazy happens.
I'm going to get extra sleep and try and raid your party tomorrow.
Nice. Love to have you on, Adega. You're always welcome. So thank you for reading part 1. That was just chapter 1, guys. The Rose of Condorus. Things are going to go very badly. I'm just going to say that. So if you think this is going to have a good ending, no. Things are going to go very badly. Just as a little peek behind the curtain. Things are going to get really, really bad, and you'll get an idea where this is going. So I can't wait to read more of this to you guys. We'll do it next week. But Adega, do you have anything coming up you want to shout out?
Next week I will, not this week. I'm going to be one of the guest hosts at Script Doctors next Saturday, not this Saturday. He's got a cool show, and he started it last week, and he's going to eventually have people judge on who they like his best co-host after he's run through everybody, and then that one will stick with him. What he does, there's something in Hollywood called the blacklist, and the blacklist is all this potential scripts, and they pass them around to various different companies to see which ones they want to take, which ones they just let hang out there. And so he's going through these different scripts in the blacklist. And last week was a story about Madden, and I figured, it's a cool idea, but it wasn't. Either way, it wasn't historically accurate. This week is one that I am really struggling to get through because, well, if you tune into a show, you'll see. But next week, I'll be there. And then Sunday, for those of you who follow the Blood Witch story and I'm now on Ellie, the chapter here is probably central to the entire Ellie's history book. So if you're into that, don't miss it. But other than that, no, I'm just going to hang out and harass you whenever I get a chance.
Nice.
Keep the boiler going on that automaton. I'm going to let her loose one of these days.
I tell you what, release it on Twitter. By all means, go on Twitter right now because I'm so sick and tired of this. You're going to get to hear about this tomorrow. The wallet is closed. I'm not giving these people any more money. I'm tired of this bullshit. I've been talking about being adult and not feeding into this crap and not feeding into the drama and not feeding into the BS all week. Tuesday, we talked about it. Monday, Wednesday, we talked about it. Thursday, we talked about it this morning. And what are these jackasses doing online? They're sharing DMs and being dumbasses and acting like children. I'm done. They're not getting my money anymore.
You know what the fun part about this is? They're adults. At least they're supposed to be.
They're supposed to be adults and leading the way and showing us this is the way. And we've got more sense in Valhalla for this bullshit than they do. And they've got this giant forum they can use. They've got all these resources, and they can't even act like adults. This is the problem. This is not the way, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to send a message tomorrow. I'm closing the wallet book. I'm closing my wallet, my pocketbook. No more money's going out to these jackasses. I will fund smaller creators that can act like adults than this shit. So come by tomorrow morning.
Yes.
With me and Dave Bob and the lady Arwen Avalon. And you can hear me rant for about 15, 20 minutes before we move on to the next topic about how these dumbasses just lost constant sales because I bought everything. I invested in everything. Sometimes I bought two of the same thing because I'm a dumbass. So it's all going. I'm done. Anyway, guys, take care. Be excellent to each other. Always speak friend to enter. We'll see you tomorrow morning on the Weekend Review with Loki, the Lady, and the Rooster. Have a great night, everybody.
Keep those fires lit.
That's right.
These videos are tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.